My name is Raquel Jarrett Blackwood, and I am a master's student at the Mico University College studying Counselling and Social Work. It is my pleasure today to advocate on the behalf of Jamaican boys. I will be speaking on the topic of sexual offenses against boys. Daddy, don't touch me there. I'm gonna tell on you one day, I swear. Morgan 2007. It's taboo, isn't it? As a society, we don't talk about it. Several reggae artists have coined songs condemning perverted acts committed against girls. However, to date, very few have taken a stance against sexual offenses perpetuated against boys. The historical sexual assault of boys is well known and mostly unarticulated. Enslaved black males were sexually assaulted by both white men and white women through outright physical penetration, forced reproduction, and sexual coercion. Berry and Harris, 2018. Though slavery was abolished in 1834, its enduring legacy is still etched in the fabric of our Caribbean. Sexual offenses against Jamaican boys have been treated with exiguous regard for decades. This has had damaging results and must be addressed expeditiously. Sexual offenses against Jamaican boys are treated with scant regard due to an inept legal system, poor socialization, and gender inequality. When these factors are addressed, our boys will be better protected and will no longer be deprived of their rights to equal protection. For far too long, the Jamaican legal system has made a mockery of treating with sexual offenses against boys. The legal systems designed to protect our children from victimization have failed to carry out their intended purpose. The inefficiencies in the legal system which contributes to its failure include a Sexual Offences Act that is in need of revision, a fruitless sex offenders registry, as well as light sentences to sexual offenders. Firstly, the Sexual Offences Act is useless in bringing to justice those who rape boys. The statutes outlined are sexist and label males only as perpetrators while failing to acknowledge that they can also be victims of rape. The Sexual Offences Act 2009, Part 2 states, and I quote, "A man commits the offense of rape if he has sexual intercourse with a woman without the woman's consent and knowing that the woman does not consent to sexual intercourse or recklessly not caring whether the woman consents or not." End quote. Based on the terms outlined in the Act, a boy cannot be raped and a female cannot rape a boy. One would argue that the Offences Against the Person Act, 1864, satisfactorily addresses the issues of sexual abuse of boys under Section 76, which speaks to buggery. However, the maximum sentence for buggery is 10 years, which is less than the maximum sentence for rape. The current maximum sentence for rape is life imprisonment. Thus, those who commit rape against boys end up getting far shorter sentences than those who rape girls. It is also noteworthy that neither of the aforementioned acts addresses the issue of boys being raped by women. Still, others may argue that an offender who rapes a boy can be charged with sexual intercourse with a child under 16, which carries a longer sentence than buggery. However, this would only apply if the boy is under 16. In cases where the boy is under 16, the adult would only receive the maximum penalty of life imprisonment if he or she is considered to be in a position of authority with respect to the child. If the child is over 16 and the perpetrator is a male, then the Buggery law, which only carries a maximum sentence of 10 years, would be applied. However, if the child is over 16 and the perpetrator is a female, then neither the charge of rape, sexual intercourse with a child under 16, or the Buggery charge could be applied because women do not have penises with which to rape anyone. The Sexual Offences Act is clearly in need of revision. Secondly, the Sex Offenders Registry was established in 2014 in order to allow government officials to track sex offenders. However, the law in its present stage does not mandate for victims to be informed if their convicted offenders will be residing in their communities or relocate there at later dates. Who then stands to benefit from the Sex Offenders Registry if it does not allow for victims to be adequately protected from perpetrators? It would appear as though the sex offender's rights to privacy trumps the rights of our boys and other vulnerable members of the society to be protected from sexual abuse. This is especially daunting for our boys, as those who commit offenses against boys have greater proclivities of reoffending. According to Przybylski, 2015, and I quote, research that examines the recidivism of rapists and child molesters indicates that the highest observed recidivism rates are found among child molesters who offend against boys. End quote. Are we desperate to have less sex offenders in prison, or have we simply lost our appetite for justice? Even with the current disparities in maximum sentences that can be allotted for those who rape our boys, the current sentence reduction initiative derived from the amended Criminal Justice Act 2015 allows for up to a 50% reduction in time served. Thus, if a man is convicted of committing buggery against a child, he can serve as little as 5 years in prison. This does not afford for adequate rehabilitation to take place and may lead to even more recidivism among this group. Our boys have been immersed in a culture where hypersexualization is profound. They are taught through popular music that man fi have enough gal and fire burn panna. The poor socialization of our boys regarding sexuality has resulted in many sexual offenses against boys going unreported. According to Jones and Gemot, 2016, and I quote, in the Caribbean, some forms of sexual abuse are recast as sexual initiation and claimed as a cultural rite of passage. For example, in the few cases where the sexual abuse of boys by women was cited, participants suggested this would be regarded not as abuse, but as initiation into a heterosexual version of manhood. End quote. With this tarnished view of sexual abuse, it is likely that many boys in Jamaica have fallen victims to female perpetrators but do not report it because they do not know their rights or they wish to be viewed as a big man. Others may be fearful that they may be viewed as soft if they report such an offense or they refuse the advances of an older woman. The end result is sexual offenses against boys being underreported. Romano and De Luca, 2001, as stated in Jones and Gemot 2016, opined, and I quote, women are said to be abused 1.5 to 3 times the rate for men However, inhibiting factors in the reporting of the sexual abuse of boys are widely understood to conceal the extent of male victimization. End quote. Furthermore, homophobia myths associating the abuse of boys with homosexuality often made it difficult for sexual victimization to be openly acknowledged. They are less likely to report sexual offenses if they perceive that they will be stigmatized and labeled as homosexuals. In addition, as boys are generally less expressive, they are less likely to verbalize their traumatic experiences. Finally, sexual offenses against Jamaican boys are treated with scant regard due to gender inequality. The laws regarding sexual offenses are gender biased. This has resulted in sexual offenders who perpetuate crimes against boys receiving less time, if they are even charged. Gender inequality can also be seen in our culture and socialization. Girls are taught that their bodies are precious, but the same level of regard is often not afforded to our boys. They are encouraged to be promiscuous and may even be scoffed upon if they report their sexual victimization. How can we shift the paradigm so that our boys are protected from sexual offenses and receive the help and justice they desire if they fall prey? Firstly, and most importantly, the Sexual Offences Act 2009 needs to be amended. Its current definition for rape needs to be broadened so that boys can be regarded as victims of rape and females can be regarded as perpetrators. Secondly, the sex offenders registry should be disclosed to the public. The government, we the people, must hold our elected officials accountable so that they protect the most vulnerable in our society, our children. Furthermore, where a guilty plea is entered under the Sentence Reduction Initiative, the minimum number of years for sexual offenses involving our boys should be no less than 75% of the regular recommended sentence. This would afford more time for sexual offenders to rehabilitate and provide victims with more time to heal. Cohesively, a rigorous rehabilitation program needs to be developed for sexual offenders as this will decrease the chances of recidivism. Also, victim support needs to be increased. All members of our society have a role to play in ensuring that our boys receive the help they need. The onus is on us to ensure that the crimes are reported and boys receive the counseling they need to overcome their traumatic experiences. Greater emphasis needs to be placed on highlighting programs in place to support victims. Many persons are unaware of where to go to receive counseling for boys who have been sexually abused. In addition, public education regarding laws should be an ongoing effort in schools and institutions. The public should be made aware that there is no statute of limitation for criminal offenses, which is inclusive of sexual offenses against boys. Finally, a national campaign which facilitates public education regarding sexual offenses against boys, as well as provides avenues for our boys to express themselves through visual, performing, and literary arts, should be launched. This will aid in re-socializing our boys about their sexuality. Let us show our boys that we care. Help me to help our boys. Your voice matters. Let us whisper together until it becomes as loud as a shout. Say no to sexual offenses against boys.